All right. So I'm going to venture into a topic that is huge in a way. We're going to talk about helping our family get sober, or our partners, or we're going to talk about you know helping people we love get sober. And if you some of you will really relate to this. If you have kids that are using, you're scared to death, what's going to happen to them. So many people are dying, the mind gets pretty carried away on this subject. Or if you have a partner, a husband or wife that's drinking, in your opinion, too much, and or using, maybe on the cocaine or whatever, it's like, holy shit, what do I do? How do I help them? And why would they do that? The questions that we ask as family, when we watch our loved ones going down the drain, if you will, and that's sometimes what's happening. The questions are, why would they do this, and how do I stop them, and what are they thinking, and where's their common sense, and what about you know all the hard work they put into their life, and now it's becoming a mess. And so our husband or our son, has got their second or third impaired driving charge, and we're like, Jesus, what do we do? So I know it's a big question. I've been around the recovery game for a long time. I've talked to a lot of mothers, tons of mothers, who are, terribly concerned, and sometimes out of love, even complicate the situation. Mothers and dads who are trying their very best to to work with their son or daughter, and just don't know what to do. They're afraid to upset them. If they upset them, the their kid will maybe go out drinking, or they feel responsible. Like, oh, what did I do wrong? How come my son or my daughter is drinking or using drugs, or other forms of addiction, maybe around food, anorexia, uh, and bulimia, or kind of fall into the addiction category as well. And so we're stuck. It's a mess. It's a quagmire. It's a and we think we can kind of love them out of it, or we can help them, financially out of it, or and it gets, or eventually we get to a point where we have to lock them out of our lives, and but none of it is there's where's the peace in all of that, and it's difficult. It's really difficult. I know that it's difficult. I've been through it myself, actually. Without talking too much about my own family, but um, truly, uh, folks very close to me is, my immediate family, it, getting very caught up in drugs and alcohol, um, and even in with me having been in recovery at the time, still, being an enabler, trying to ease the blow, and so what do I think we can do? It's a hard reality. It's confusing. We think, well, they we should be able to. They should be able. We think they should be able to figure it out. If they loved us enough, they would figure it out. And that's a crazy thought. We have to recognize that alcoholism or addiction is a disease. It's a mental illness, and it's compounded, by, well, there's two parts to it. One is that when the alcoholic or the addict uses or drinks, this something that's way beyond their control sets in, and we call it the obsession, or the compulsion sets in, and I remember what was, one of the things that was in my own drinking years ago, I would sincerely believe a couple of things. One, that maybe I was just going to go out for a couple. I was, especially towards the end of my drinking, when it was really bad, I would say to my wife, I'm just going to go for a couple. I'll see you in a bit. Really, I'll be back by 8. And 8 might be 8 the next night, and I believed it. And when I left, she believed it too, that, and so it was beyond my control. Once I started to drink or use, it became paramount to all other things. And that's just a fact for the alcoholic and the addict. And so if you're not one, and you have one in your life, and you're wondering, why the hell would he even tell me he was just going for a couple? you know, but he or she believes it. Or the other thing that we do is when we've been on a bad spree, and things have, we've kind of burned the house down a bit. We've really screwed things up, and we say, we call it the kind of the alcoholic mantra. We say never again. That's it. And you know what? We could be given the lie detector test and we would pass because we really believe it. It's we believe it. We think, to we've gotten to a certain point where we, in our own alcoholism or addiction, where we can't even trust ourselves. Up until that point, we actually believe it. We're like, okay, I'm gonna. That's it. I'm done. I am done. I am done. I'm done. And we would pass the lie detector test, and yet, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months later, it's shifted. The mind, we cannot hold in our mind with sufficient force the paralyzing um, depression and the anguish of the last debacle. We just can't. It isn't enough to keep us sober, and we say, well, you know what, one won't hurt, and we're off and running again. I remember as a kid, when I was really, really young, I had an uncle, Uncle Lloyd, and he was kind of the family alcoholic, Uncle Lloyd, and he did sober up, by the way, before he died, but he was, and oh my gosh, he was a hard drinker. He drank, and his where he put his bottles. I remember as a kid finding his empties, and they're just hundreds of empties. He drank Mickeys of rum, and just like endless piles of these Mickeys of empty bottles, and it was. I remember as a kid, being like 9 or 10 and thinking, my God, I can't believe it. He was putting this much booze in his body. So, but he was a smart man, really smart. And that's the other thing. If you have a son or a daughter or a husband or a wife or a parent who is, a practicing alcoholic or an addict, often they're beyond intelligent. They're just super potential for amazing, lives, and yet they're caught in this downward spiral. And so what do we do? You know, it you know I think that we come to a point. First of all, I suggest Al-Anon. We go to Al-Anon because we're part of, our reaction is sort of part of the problem. Often, we don't understand the disease, and we don't understand the effect it's having on our family. And uh, so and and we come to understand not only the disease, but also how to live at peace with that in our family. And how do you it's a difficult task if somebody we love is killing themselves with the disease. And we were like, how do I live with this? And my own family, with people very, very close to me who were suffering from the disease of alcoholism and addiction, I recognized that I couldn't help them. Like, I literally could not help them. All I could do was just love them. Um, you know, uh, in one case, I had to ask, somebody in my family not to live with us, to, literally not come home, but couldn't live there anymore, and pray for them. I believe that there's a power in prayer, and the energy of prayer is powerful, and not that they get sober so much, but that they find, what life's will is for them, what universal intelligence or God's will is for them. And so I became more accepting of their situation, and not blaming them for having a disease, nor blaming myself for their situation. The more accepting I became, that doesn't mean I didn't have boundaries and I didn't look after myself, because the symptoms of the disease can really affect the family. I mean, it's no longer the child or the partner that, it's the disease speaking often. And so, I had to take care of some practical boundaries, but I couldn't, I don't know what their journey is. And I realized that I couldn't decide, what, no matter how much I loved them or how much I wanted them to see, the, the way out. I couldn't force it on them. I could lay it out. I could be a good listener. I could be free of judgment. I could love them, but I couldn't change them. But as it happened, most everybody in my family has gotten sober. There's a lot of recovery in my family. Recovery is catching, you know. So, if you go to Al-Anon and you find the principles of Al-Anon for your own life, those principles are the same in AA and NA and CA, and it can be catching. The alcoholic and the addict is wondering what happened to you. Why are you not all in a panic anymore, chasing them around town or running down to get them out of jail? you know, well, you've realized that they have an illness and that they're, you can't fix them and you didn't cause it. You're not to blame for it, so they can't lay guilt trips and do all the stuff that they used to be able to do. And it's like, oh, what happened to them? And so your recovery actually has an effect on their recovery. It's not I'm not saying that it will change anything, but it has a possibility. And so that's it. I mean, there's so much I could go deep into this. Um, People are doing a lot of interventions, and sometimes a really well staged intervention can shake the addict or the alcoholic to the core and bring them to against the wall a bit. And it's like, okay, I got to do something. I have to do something. This is getting beyond. And people do pull out of it. With well-planned interventions, and so anyway, if you ever want to talk, if you got a wife or a husband that's suffering from the disease of addiction, alcoholism, or one of your children, adult children, or a parent, I'm open to that conversation. I mean, I have empathy. I understand that it's difficult, right? And it's a bit of a mess because we fall into guilt and shame, and we don't know what we did wrong and all of that stuff. So we can talk about that. I'd love to chat with you. So these little videos I've been doing every few days lately. I've been reading from a book, and I love this book. I mean, the way out, I believe, for all of us in recovery is to discover the source of our power, and the source of our power, is beyond, kind of the ego or our personal will. And I think that connecting with source or universal intelligence or consciousness or God or whatever, however you perceive that, is the key. So this book, the Tao Te Ching, is one of those books that has a lot of, I mean, it's just a great piece of work. This one is from Stephen Mitchell. I think there are many ways to discover our relationship or connection with universal consciousness, with the Father of Light, with the, however you want to see it, and I'm not I don't have a kind of a religious bent. I know there's something, and it's a bit beyond description. And it's not something that I believe in. It's something that I have a relationship with, and it brings me peace. And what more could we want than to have peace? It doesn't bring me dogma. It doesn't bring me a list of shoulds and shouldn'ts. It helps me to be more at one with what is happening in the world. And so I encourage you to find your relationship with that, whether you find it through meditation or for me the road to my discovery or awakening has been multi-pronged. The 12 steps, of course, are magic and are guaranteed if we follow them to the best of our ability to give us a relationship. But there are also, lots of things to augment that. And this is one of those things written by lao-tzu hundreds and hundreds of years ago. The Tao Te Ching, chapter 64. It's about 4 paragraphs, so it's not long, but I'm going to read it to you. And it says, and I haven't read it, so when I read these to you, usually it's the first time I've read this, and since the last time I went through it. And mostly with this book, I've never read it like cover to cover. I open it and read a page. I read one of the writings, but here we're going through. There's 81 of them, I think, and we're very close to. We're on 64. It says, "What is rooted is easy to nourish. What is recent is easy to correct. What is brittle is easy to break. What is small is easy to scatter. Prevent trouble before it arises. Put things in order before they exist. The giant pine tree grows from a tiny sprout. The journey of 1,000 miles starts from beneath your feet. Rushing into action, you fail. Trying to grasp things, you lose them. Forcing a project to completion, you ruin what was almost ripe. Therefore, the master takes action by letting things take their course. He remains as calm at the end as at the beginning. He has nothing, thus has nothing to lose. What he desires is non-desire. What he learns is to unlearn. He simply reminds people of who they have always been. He cares about nothing but the Tao. Thus, he can care for all things." Beautiful. So, awakening to the knowledge that everything is as it needs to be, even your addict or alcoholic in your family. Their process is part of their awakening. And remember that we all have to go through what we're going through. And your love and acceptance can help open the door for your addict or alcoholic. And learning about the disease can help. Yeah. Okay, that's it. It's a long one today, but it's a big subject. And I'll maybe talk about it a little more in the future. Love it if you subscribe on YouTube and comment or give me a call. We can chat about recovery, about awakening, about consciousness, about peace, about freedom, happy, joyous, and free. Okay, love you guys. Cheers, thanks.